All right, guys, this week we're going to look at visuals and advertising and just why visuals um, in advertising are important, why you want to use them. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the ethics that go into that, because I think when we listen or watch advertising, we automatically think, okay, well, what are they trying to sell me? And what about it have they manipulated? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But to begin with, I thought this was a funny meme that said, when your advertising interrupts my video, it makes me hate your product. And I don't know about y'all, but we exclusively stream all of our media. We don't have cable, we don't have satellite, and so we don't really see a lot of advertising unless we're like on YouTube or the internet or things like that. And usually, when we see it, it just we're like, oh, okay, now get to the point. We don't want to see this advertisement, right? And I think we've gotten to that point in society, but it's not going away. And so I think even if you aren't going into advertising, understanding how advertising impacts you is important. So one of the cool things about advertising is the people that think advertising does not affect them, it actually impacts them more than the average person. There's been lots of studies about that. If you just think like, oh, I know that they're advertising to me, it's not that big of a deal. I'm not going to buy it, but you are actually more susceptible to it if you think you aren't. And we live in a society where, again, advertisements are everywhere. We're going to see them no matter what. And so when you think about how to advertise a product or a brand, visuals is a great way to do that. So when you have visual storytelling within your brand development, it really enhances the communication and the captivation of your audience because you can connect to them one-on-one, and you can really elicit some emotional connections with them. I think Budweiser is really great at doing that during the Super Bowl. They make us laugh, but they also can make us like want to cry when we see like the puppy and the Clydesdale horses. And there's lots of other brands that do that as well. Dove is really great at trying to empower women through their ads. But then you also have, um, you know, commercials and brands that don't do that, that, try to degrade women or degrade males too. And so when you think about that, there's lots of different ways that you can connect and captivate your audience. Um, Studies have shown that visuals are processed 60,000 times faster than text. And we've talked a little bit about that as we have gone through and talked about visuals in general. When we look at visuals, we process the information faster than if we were to read it. And so, therefore, advertising again has a big impact on us because we are interpreting what it says and what it means a lot faster than we would just like reading about the product. Um, when you look at an advertisement or a visual, you usually remember 80% of what you see compared to 20% of what you read. And so, again, if you use visuals in your advertising, people are going to remember you. And I think that we understand that. I mean, we have logos and brand colors and trademarks that really help us associate brands. So, like Nike and the check mark, McDonald's and the arches, Apple and their Apple logo. So when you think about those kinds of things, it really becomes just intuitive that we use visuals to sell products. So why is it important? Well, we talked about it captures attention. You can really grab somebody's attention with the visual before a long thing of text. Um, it enhances message retention. Um, Again, you're going to remember an image more than you'll remember the text. And if it is a certain image that is associated with a brand, then that really is going to help you connect them. When we talked about semiotics, that really came up is that what comes to mind when you say a word. And so if you say Nike, does the check mark come in hand, come to mind? Um, this also becomes important because if people can do brand recall through images, then your brand is, becoming more successful, right? Because people can remember it on cue. Again, we want to facilitate um, storytelling and really connecting with an audience. And it's not so much about like selling you the product as it is connecting to the people that you want to buy from you, and really helping them understand that, you know, you're one and the same, that buying their product means that they're supportive, that you're supporting them. And then, you know, with that, that builds brand identity. You know, a big thing right now is like the Stanley Cups, right? Girls all across the US at least are using these Stanley Cups, and it's become this like epidemic almost. And they've really built a brand identity around young women using these cups to hydrate, to be on the go. They have all sorts of colors. And, you know, Stanley used to be like this old man coffee mug kind of thing. You know, they wake up super early and go to their blue collar job. And now it's more of an aesthetic for women, and this brand that, you know, makes them feel fit and popular. Along with that, images can really help you connect with diverse audiences. It can help people understand what your brand is about, what you do sustainably, to help your environment and your community. Images also help you drive engagement across platforms. If you have one image, or a logo or something, a video, you can use that on multiple platforms, and not just online, but on billboards, in magazines, things like that. And you can change it slightly, or you can use the same thing, and it really connects the brand across different platforms and mediums. Images also help you differentiate from your competitors. Again, that's where we get trademarks. Um, it's adaptable across media, and then it helps foster consumer trust, because if you have something that is consistent, it looks like you, it feels like you, they're going to be more willing to buy from you, and because they know that's what you are, right? So how do we do this? Well, the first thing is you've got to have some kind of imagery, right? So you use high quality visuals or video to really convey emotion, and get across your message effectively. And we've talked about all the ways that you can do this, right? Through compositional elements, through storytelling, music, color, all these different things can help you convey the emotion and also get your message across. But it's not just about the image, it's about the narrative that goes with it, right? Because you want that image to really resonate with your audience, and you want it to be impactful. You want them to remember it. So again, they have to go hand in hand. So it's not just about, oh, this is a visual class, this is a storytelling class. No, it's a visual storytelling class. Again, you want to have that consistency. You want to maintain a cohesive visual style. When we talk about visual style, that's using the same kind of colors, using the same logo, using you know, the same people or types of people. And so that really helps you stay consistent across things. Texas Tech, for instance, has certain red and black colors that they use in all of their marketing. And if you go on their website, they have all of the different hues, all the different logos, and how you can use them, where you use certain ones, because they want their branding as a university to be consistent across the board. When you use visual storytelling, you also have an emotional impact, and that helps drive that stronger connection. Again, think about like the Super Bowl commercials with Budweiser. You may not be a Budweiser drinker, but you remember the visuals of them, right? About the dog and the horses, or, you know, the knights, and Bud Light, you know, making fun of different things. And then again, design principles. So things that we've talked about in this class that really build upon images, and how you make them effective and tell that story are important. And I know some of you are probably like, I didn't sign up for a photography class, or I didn't sign up for a video class. But when you learn the elements that go into being a photographer and a videographer, that's where you really learn the little nuances into becoming a successful visual storyteller. Another way that you can use advertising to your advantage, especially with visuals, is having people that are fans of your brand make user-generated content. And what that is that it's just people that use your product or are fans of yours submitting photos and videos of them using the product. So for instance, you know, it's holiday season for Starbucks, and so they're going to start asking people to submit pictures of their red cup contest, and usually they have people, they can win a gift card or they can be featured on their social media, and so that's a way for them to generate stories and visuals that they don't have to do themselves. um, it is said through research that 90% of consumers said that if they see user generated content by like influencers or just everyday people, they're more likely to buy from a brand than if it is a well polished produced image. The real advantage of generated content really is that it just puts the perception out there that people really do trust your brand, they use their brand, and it's not, again, just this really polished idea that you're trying to get across, but that, it's relatable. But with that, when you make the visual and you make the video and you're putting out this advertising, one of the things you have to think about is you want to be respectful, that you're not trying to trick your audience, right? You want them to relate to you, you want to get the message across, but you also want to do it with a moral duty. So ethics in we're not going to get into a whole thing of ethics, but I just want to talk about like the ethics in advertising, especially visuals, is the discipline dealing with what is good and bad and what you feel like you should do in a situation. We all have our own set of ethics or our own set of morals, and this will kind of help decide whether you think something is ethically okay or not when it comes to advertising. When you think about, how advertising can be so impactful, and you are selling a product, one of the things you have to think about is, do we have a moral duty to ourselves, to our clients, our subscribers, our supporters, to our organization or our firm, so the brand, to our professional colleagues, and then to society in general? Like when we are producing these visuals, are we being ethical in how we are selling the product? Um, One of the things about photographs and video is that there are two thoughts when it comes to a truthful photograph, um, or visual or graphic design. It's just the visual itself. Truth lies in the meaning of the image and whether or not it conveys a truthful feeling, or an understanding of the subject or the brand or the content or what you're selling. And truth itself exists in the accuracy of the image, on exactly what the photographer saw when the shutter was released. So there are so many things that you can do in Photoshop and Premiere Pro when you're editing, especially now with AI. But you have to also remember like what is accurate and what is your consumer going to see versus what you're putting out there. So we live in a Photoshop world. Even if you don't know Photoshop itself, there are so many apps out there that you can use to change the way images look. There's also filters. TikTok is one of those things that we love, the filters to make us look good, especially, girls, if you don't have makeup on. But it's also a little like deceiving, right? Because that's not really what's going on. Um, this is not new. We have been dealing with this for a long, long time, and we have just added on to it. But there's also common practices in the realms of photography and the realms of advertising that help us decide what is okay and what isn't. So, um, I said it's been going on for a long time. Here is an image of Abraham Lincoln, right? Um, Looks fine, everything's good. But what's funny is that is not actually Abraham Lincoln's body. There you go. This was another politician. They took his body and then put Abraham Lincoln's face on it and kind of cleaned up everything. Because I don't know if they didn't have time to do another photo or if they just, were in a rush or they liked the pose. But anyways, this shows you this has been going on for a really, really long time. I don't know how many of you know about OJ Simpson. He is kind of an older celebrity in terms of news and sports. But he went on trial for a very famous murder case of his wife. And when they were releasing information, Newsweek released this image of him. And you can see it's his mugshot, it says Trail of Blood. They were trying to get this image across. Well, what the interesting thing is Time released this one. You see a big difference? One is a lot darker, one is portraying this American tragedy. It's the same image, but one is lighter, it's his true skin color, versus one has been made darker to tell a different narrative. We see this a lot in news. It's not respectable. And it's one of those things that you have to go, is this ethical? Again, we all know the Kardashians. We know that they love Photoshop, especially the liquefy tool to make them more skinny. Kim has been called out on it several times on her Instagram. But here, again, I don't see anything wrong with the picture on the left, but as a magazine photographer, they went in, they cleaned up her legs, they cleaned up the curves around her stomach, made her smaller, and just made her skin tone a lot lighter as well. Is this ethical? These are the kinds of things you have to ask yourself, because you're selling one image when in reality it's the other image. And a lot of celebrities have started stepping up and saying, no, you will not touch up my photos, you will not manipulate what I look like, because they really do want other people to feel like they're relatable, that beauty is a standard that they can live up to, not this unacceptable standard. Again, Olivia Newton-John was pictured, and her face for this cream, they took out all of her wrinkles, they brightened her eyes and her complexion, when in reality this is what she looked like. We've all seen this, we've all experienced it, and I think that your generation in particular is a little more aware of that, because you've seen the filters, you've seen the things. My generation, and I think Gen X, we were aware of it, but we still had these like concept, ideas of beauty and the beauty standard. And even though we knew things were photoshopped, we still had these unrealistic expectations. So I think it's great that y'all can see past that in a lot of ways. Again, another image, Beyonce, this is her natural color versus the L'Oreal picture. And yes, her hair color is lighter. They're selling the brand to make, dye your hair, but they've also gone in and lightened her skin. Again, an ethical dilemma, right? So with that, I want to share a video. This is Jill Kilbourne. She is a renowned researcher when it comes to the beauty industry and the ethics in like the Photoshop world. And I want to share just a snippet of her video lecture that she has done for several decades, and she updates it and changes it. I've seen her talk about this in person. She's wonderful, but I wanted to share just a little snippet of it so that you can get the idea that things aren't as you think they are.
Sometimes people say to me, you've been talking about this for 40 years. Have things gotten any better? And actually, I have to say, really, they've gotten worse. Ads sell more than products. They sell values, they sell images, they sell concepts of love and sexuality, of success, and perhaps most important, of normalcy. To a great extent, they tell us who we are and who we should be. Well, what does advertising tell us about women? It tells us, as it always has, that what's most important is how we look. So the first thing the advertisers do is surround us with the image of ideal female beauty. Women learn from a very early age that we must spend enormous amounts of time, energy, and above all, money, striving to achieve this look and feeling ashamed and guilty when we fail. And failure is inevitable because the ideal is based on absolute flawlessness. She never has any lines or wrinkles. She certainly has no scars or blemishes. Indeed, she has no pores. And the most important aspect of this flawlessness is that it cannot be achieved. No one looks like this, including her. And this is the truth. No one looks like this. The supermodel Cindy Crawford once said, "I wish I looked like Cindy Crawford." She doesn't, she couldn't, because this is a look that's been created for years through airbrushing and cosmetics, but these days it's done through the magic of computer retouching. Keira Knightley is given a bigger bust. Jessica Alba is made smaller. Kelly Clarkson, well, this is interesting. It says slim down your way, but she in fact slimmed down the Photoshop way. You almost never see a photograph of a woman considered beautiful that hasn't been photoshopped. We all grow up in a culture in which women's bodies are constantly turned into things, into objects. Here she's become the bottle of Michelob. In this ad, she becomes part of a video game. And this is everywhere, in all kinds of advertising. Women's bodies turned into things, into objects. Now, of course, this affects female self-esteem. It also does something even more insidious. It creates a climate in which there's widespread violence against women. I'm not at all saying that an ad like this directly causes violence. It's not that simple. But turning a human being into a thing is almost always the first step toward justifying violence against that person. We see this with racism. We see it with homophobia. We see it with terrorism. It's always the same process. The person is dehumanized, and violence then becomes inevitable. And that step is already and constantly taken with women. Women's bodies are dismembered in ads, hacked apart. Just one part of the body is focused upon, which of course is the most dehumanizing thing you could do to someone. Everywhere we look, women's bodies turned into things and often just parts of things. And girls are getting the message these days so young that they need to be impossibly beautiful, hot, sexy, extremely thin, and they also get the message that they're going to fail, that there's no way to really achieve it. Girls tend to feel fine about themselves when they're 8, 9, 10 years old, but they hit adolescence and they hit a wall. And certainly part of this wall is this terrible emphasis on physical perfection. So no wonder we have an epidemic of eating disorders in our country and increasingly throughout the world. I've been talking about this for a very long time, and I keep thinking that the models can't get any thinner, but they do. They get thinner and thinner and thinner. This is Anna Carolina Reston, who died a year ago of anorexia, weighing 88 pounds, and at the time she was still modeling. So the models literally cannot get any thinner. So Photoshop is brought to the rescue. There are exceptions, however. Kate Winslet has been outspoken about her refusal to allow Hollywood to dictate her weight. When British GQ magazine published this photograph of Winslet, which was digitally enhanced to make her look dramatically thinner, she issued a statement that the alterations were made without her consent. And she said, "I don't look like that, and more importantly, I don't desire to look like that. I can tell you that they've reduced the size of my legs by about a third." Bless her heart. So what can we do about all of this? Well, the first step is to become aware, to pay attention, and to recognize that this affects all of us. These are public health problems that I'm talking about. The obsession with thinness is a public health problem. The tyranny of the ideal image of beauty, violence against women, these are all public health problems that affect us all. And public health problems can only be solved by changing the environment.
So, Dr. Kilborn, she is great. She has a whole series of these lectures. This is just a small snippet of it. But again, it's something to really think about. So when you are, going through this, whether you go into advertising, whether you go into media production, whether you don't do any of this, and you're just thinking about how advertising affects your life, think about ethical standards. Do you think ethical standards stifle creativity? Or do you think there is a place that it is acceptable in terms of creativity? And if so, what are those areas? And that's something that you should think about as you go forward in the media industry or whatever industry you're going in what area is it okay for you to manipulate things and be creative, and what areas is it not? And I think we all have to think about that, especially with generative AI coming up, because one of the things is one, it's going to create images that aren't real. It's going to change the way things look. And then two, or three, it's going to take credit from other people, other artists, and use those things, whether it's visual art or textual. And so we have to remember how this all works in general, and going forward, how we can use it to the best of our advantage, but also with the intent that we want to be ethical. When you are making these kinds of decisions, there are two things you should think about. One, you need to know yourself and your own ethical standards, because if you don't have that standard, your principles within your job are going to not hold up. And then know the purpose of the image and the story and the text that you're using and how it can be affected, how it can impact other people, and how it might be interpreted by your audience. So, all right, I'm going to get off my soapbox here. The last thing I want to show you, I just think this is so funny. I'm sorry if you're tired of the Marvel comic examples. It's just something that I really love, and it's something that everyone kind of knows a little bit about. But this is a Photoshop of Thanos. He was one of the main villains in the first 2 to 3 big segments of the Marvel universe. And so enjoy this, and then I will talk to y'all later.